Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi concludes historic Ukraine visit, calls for a diplomatic solution to resolve the Ukraine-Russia conflict, reiterates India's willingness to contribute to facilitate an early return of peace in the region. India's Defence Minister holds talks with US Defence Secretary Llyod Austin, discusses ways to deepen existing defence ties. The US, along with countries in Europe and Latin America, reject the certification by Venezuela Supreme Court of Nicolas Maduro's presidential re-election. 3 people killed in a suspected knife attack in the western German city of Solingen. Search operation underway for the unknown attacker. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has successfully concluded his maiden visit for any top Indian leader to conflict-ridden Ukraine. It saw him holding bilateral talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv, which led to the signing of 4 important agreements. The leaders also came up with a joint statement where Prime Minister Modi assured the Ukrainian leader of India's all possible help to facilitate an early return of peace.
In a historic move, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv, marking the first ever visit by an Indian leader to Ukraine. The bilateral meeting held at the Mariinsky Palace, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated India's support for dialogue and diplomacy to restore peace and stability.
मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि मानवीय दृष्टिकोण से भी जिस प्रकार की मदद की आवश्यकता होगी, भारत हमेशा हमेशा आपके साथ खड़ा रहेगा और 2 कदम आगे चलेगा.
During his visit, Prime Minister Modi also toured the multimedia martyrologist exposition on children at the National Museum of History of Ukraine. Accompanied by President Zelensky, he was deeply moved. As a gesture of respect, he placed a toy in their memory and expressed his deep sorrow over the tragic loss of young lives.
हमने जो दूसरा मार्ग चुना, वो दूसरा मार्ग है युद्ध से दूर रहने का. हम बहुत ही कन्विक्शन के साथ युद्ध से दूर रहे हैं, लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम तटस्थ थे. हम न्यूट्रल नहीं थे. हम पहले दिन से ही पक्षकार रहे हैं और हमारा पक्ष है शांति का.
Prime Minister Modi also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi at his statue in Kyiv. He highlighted the enduring relevance of Gandhi's message of peace in addressing global challenges. Post bilateral talk, India and Ukraine also held a delegation-level talk, where leaders held discussions on trade, defense, pharmaceuticals, agriculture and education. India and Ukraine also exchanged agreements in the field of agriculture and food industry, cooperation in the field of medical product regulation, Indian humanitarian grant assistance for high-impact community development projects, and in the field of cultural cooperation. India is providing medical assistance to Ukraine, which includes indigenous portable hospital, Bhishma cubes, and other medical equipments.
На сьогодні ми погодили.
As of today, we have agreed on the 4 documents that will be signed during this truly historic visit between Ukraine and India. These are regarding the medical field, the agricultural cooperation, humanitarian dimension, and I'm grateful for all of this, and I'm happy to see you, Mr. Prime Minister, and glory to Ukraine.
Це культура.
Earlier in the day, the Indian community in Ukraine warmly welcomed Prime Minister Modi. This landmark visit symbolizes a significant chapter in the diplomatic relations between India and Ukraine. Bureau Report, DD India.
Prime Minister interacted with Ukrainian students who are learning Hindi language at the School of Oriental Studies in Kyiv. Prime Minister appreciated the scholarship of the students and their contribution to promoting mutual understanding between people of the two countries. He also commended their efforts to bring Indian culture and history closer to the Ukrainian people. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, who was on a Washington visit, interacted with leading US defence companies at the Defence Industry Roundtable. During the meeting, Rajnath Singh invited them to accelerate Make in India program towards achieving Atmanirbharta in the defence sector. He also met National Security Advisor of the United States, Jake Sullivan. Both the leaders shared perspectives on key strategic matters of mutual interest. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Friday met US Secretary of Defence Llyod and reviewed and discussed ways to further deepen existing defence cooperation between the two countries. During his visit to Washington, D.C., two important agreements were signed to boost defence cooperation between the two countries. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh acknowledged the agreements that include security of supply arrangements and the agreement for positioning of Indian officers at key US commands are path-breaking developments. Earlier in the day, Rajnath Singh also visited the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington and paid respects at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers. US Secretary of State has approved a possible foreign military sale to the Government of India of anti-submarine warfare sonobuoys and related equipment for an estimated cost of $52.8 million. Now, this proposed sale will support the foreign policy and national security objectives of the United States by helping to strengthen the United States-India strategic relationship and improving the security of a major defense partner, which continues to be an important force for political stability, peace and economic progress in the Indo-Pacific and South Asia regions. The proposed sale will improve India's capability to meet current and future threats by enhancing its capability to conduct anti-submarine warfare operations from its MH-60R helicopters. India will have no difficulty absorbing the equipment into its armed forces. DD India's Akshay Dongre joins us with more. Akshay, good morning. Now, we've just given a broad outline of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's visit to Washington, D.C. and his bilateral meetings and also the takeaways. Very quickly, what more can you add? How far will this visit of the Defence Minister to the U.S. strengthen the defence ties between the two countries?
Well, we have 2 more days of visit by the Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh in the United States of America, where a lot of other plans are already queued up as far as his interaction with the defence industry is concerned, including the interaction between the Indian defence industry partners and the US defence industry partners who are in procedure to linking several deals, be it military hardware or other kind of cooperation that may be required as far as a close cooperation between the militaries of India and the United States of America is concerned. Now we are talking about the deals that have been signed so far. First one that was signed, in fact, yesterday was SOSA, that is security of supply arrangements that ensures that in case of urgent requirement, the United States of America will prioritize India as far as supplying crucial defense equipment is concerned that is required for national defense. India was the 18th country to sign the SOSA agreement with the United States, and though it is non-binding, it has broadly outlined a possibility of more robust and binding agreements between the two countries as far as supplies of the crucial defense equipment are concerned. Because in fact this has been one of the biggest issue and biggest concern for a country like India that is heavily reliant on imports to meet its national security needs. And in case of any conflict, there should not be any sort of a problem as far as the supply chain network is concerned for these defense equipment. So SOSA solves that. The second was the deployment of liaison officers of the Indian military to the US bases, including the base in Hawaii and other bases near the Indo-Pacific region. And now what we are looking at the deal that has been signed to as far as the possibility of sale of sonar boys to India for a whopping $52.8 million will in fact significantly enhance not just India's security apparatus but also the security requirements of the United States, given the fact that India is perhaps one of the largest US ally as far as the Indo-Pacific region is concerned, the Indian Ocean region is concerned, and a country that US looks up to as far as countering China's growing influence in the region is concerned, especially the growing submarine activities of the Chinese navies. And in fact, given this deal, if it goes ahead and if it is finalized, as it has already gotten a nod from the Secretary of State, this is going to in fact be a big boost to India's anti-submarine warfare capabilities. And as US has already announced that the possibility of sale is on the cards now. It has been approved by the Secretary of State. It will go to the Congress, and once approved, India will have no difficulty in operating these state-of-the-art technology, given the fact that India already has bought the MH-60 Romeo helicopters that are also used in anti-submarine warfare. And combined with the sonar boys, it is going to be a force multiplier for the Indian Navy in the entire Indian Ocean region, along with the Indo-Pacific region as well.
All right, Akshay, thank you so much for joining in with those details. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Jalgaon in the state of Maharashtra on Sunday to distribute certificates to 1.1 million new Lakhpati Didis. The Prime Minister will also talk to Lakhpati Didis who earn 100,000 rupees or more annually. Various schemes are implemented aimed at empowering women in the country. One such scheme that has attracted considerable attention is the Lakhpati Didi initiative, which aims to provide financial assistance to women entrepreneurs and help them achieve financial independence. As part of the anti-Naxal drive, India's Home Minister Amit Shah will chair an interstate review meeting in Chhattisgarh's capital Raipur on Saturday. During the meeting, the Home Minister will assess the measures taken against Naxal insurgency and the advancement of infrastructure projects in regions known as red corridors within 9 states troubled by left-wing extremism. The meeting will witness the participation of Chief Secretaries and Director Generals of Police from neighbouring states, including Police Chiefs of Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Telangana and West Bengal. Now, these are the states where Naxalism has been constricted. Amit Shah, who is also India's Minister for Cooperation, will also chair a meeting on the expansion of cooperatives in Chhattisgarh on Saturday. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued a series of warnings for severe rainfall that is expected to impact various regions of the country. Very heavy to extremely heavy rainfall is expected over Gujarat, Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh in the coming days till August 26th. In Delhi, weather is anticipated to be mostly cloudy with periods of brief to moderate rain and thunderstorms over the coming days. The IMD's predictions extend to central India, Konkan, Goa, Madhya Maharashtra and Gujarat, where fairly widespread light to moderate rainfall is expected throughout the upcoming week. Incessant rainfall has wreaked havoc in the northeastern state of Tripura. Lakhs of people are affected due to heavy rainfall, floods and landslide incidents. The troubles for the state are likely to escalate as the Met Department has forecast very heavy rainfall over Tripura during the next 6 to 7 days. A red alert has also been issued for the state on August 25th, forecasting extremely heavy rainfall. Rescue and relief operations are in full pace as Indian Air Force, Mi-17 and ALH helicopters continue relentless efforts in relief operations with NDRF personnel inducted into disaster-struck areas. Operating from Agratala, the helicopters airdropped over 4,000 food packets to stranded locals. A total of 28 tons of relief material has been airlifted till now for flood-affected Tripura. Meanwhile, on Friday, Chief Minister Manik Saha visited the flood-affected areas of Udaipur in the Gomati district, which have been severely damaged due to heavy rains. Also on Friday, the centre has approved the release of 40 crore rupees for flood-hit Tripura. Taking stock of the situation, Union Home Minister Amit Shah assured that centre will provide all assistance to the people of the state. The flood-ravaged people of Tripura are slowly limping back to normalcy from the catastrophic deluge. Around 24 people have lost their lives in the unprecedented floods, which the state witnessed after 30 long years. To know more about the flood situation in Tripura, we're now joined in by our correspondent from Agratala, Kunal Shinde. Kunal, get us the latest update on the flood situation in Tripura. We tell our viewers that red alert has been sounded for August 25th.
Well, Preeti, the red alert has been sounded by the IMD till 26, but as you can see, it is bright and sunny today. Yesterday also the heavy rainfall warning was there, but then too there wasn't any heavy rains in any part of this the state. The rescue operation is going on at in full swing across the state. As we all know that Gomti and South Tripura districts have been worst affected due to this incessant rains which lashed Tripura for 4 days. Relief and rescue operation as well. Like if I talk about the relief camps, there are more than 500 relief camps across the state where more than 1 lakh people have taken shelters. Also, the state government is damage which this incessant rains have caused to the state. As far as the power sector is concerned, more than 500 transformers have been damaged. Close to 3 lakh families, electric consumers have been affected. Electric supply has been cut off from various districts where the water has. And also, when we talked to the secretary of the power department, he said that at some places where the water is rising, there even the consumers have called the power caller this customer care, and then they requested the power department to cut off the line so that there shouldn't be any electrocution. So the state machinery is on the job. They're assessing the damage which the heavy downpour which Tripura had never witnessed in last 30 years. So also if we talk about the agriculture sector, 1,41,000 farmers who are directly or indirectly linked with the agriculture sector have been affected. 531 crore worth of agricultural crops have been damaged because of the flood, it is a humongous situation which Tripura is confronting. But if we talk about the relief operations and also the financial assistance which the state has received yesterday from the centre, that 40 crore rupees have been released by the centre as part of the central share from SDRF. So this will provide a primary relief to the state. But if the whole entire damage has to be assessed, then it may go in crores of rupees. So Tripura faces a humongous challenge in days to come. Preeti?
All right, that was about the relief operations. But also, Kunal, let us know that whenever floods strike, the situation is always followed by the spread of an epidemic or diseases and illnesses. Waterborne diseases are on a rise. Get us more as to how well are the hospitals, the medical infrastructure there equipped to deal with such situations?
Well, in the relief camps, the state government, the health department, for example, they are providing all the medicines and proper food to the people who have been shifted to the shelter homes. As I said, that 1,41,000 people have been shifted to 531 shelter homes across the state. So adequate measures have been taken by the health department, health and sanitation department, to ensure that there is no pandemic kind of situation because of the contamination of water. So even where the water is not of good quality, their water tankers are being sent. So the state government is taking adequate measures to see that even the NGOs and some civil society members, for example, there is one professor from Tripura University. He has come up with a portable water purifier. So he is also supplying this pure water. He's purifying the water, the flood water, and supplying it to the people. In last couple of months ago,
right,
when there was such a kind of situation in Assam, that time also, yes, that time too, he had taken this measure, and he visited this state of Tripura, Assam, and supplied purified the contaminated water from the floods and supplied it to the flood affected people. So here also even the state government is taking all the necessary measures, and they are very much aware that such a kind of situation may arise because of the contamination of water. So in days to come, we'll have to see how the state government takes more adequate measures to see that there is no outbreak of any kind of disease.
All right, Kunal, we leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those updates. Changing track to other news now. Sarang, the display team of the Indian Air Force, is on its way to the first edition of the Egypt International Air Show. The IAF contingent, with its 5 ALH Mk1 helicopters, have been airlifted by C-17s. The air show will take place at the AI Alamein International Airport from September 3rd to 5th. The Sarang team, flying the indigenous Dhruv ALH, represents the spirit of Atmanirbharta and showcases India's aviation excellence. India successfully launched its first reusable hybrid rocket, Rumi-1, from South Indian state of Tamil Nadu using a mobile launcher. It carries 3 CUBE satellites and 50 pico satellites into a suborbital trajectory. The rocket was jointly developed by Space Zone India and the Martin Group.
4, 3, 2, 1. Yes.
You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break. Stay with us.
Double Olympic medalist Manu Bhaker is with us. You have achieved something which has never happened before. Tell us, how big are these medals for you?
The value of the medal, I mean, coming from Tokyo, definitely it means a big deal for me.
Tell us the role of the government also, Manu.
Khelo India and top schemes are good.
You also met Prime Minister Narendra Modi after you won the medals. Must have been a proud feeling to meet him.
So I've met him a couple of times and it's always inspiring. It always motivates us.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to international updates now. Ukraine is celebrating its Independence Day today. Independence Day in Ukraine commemorates the country's break from the Soviet Union in 1991. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke to members of the country's armed forces at a flag ceremony in Kyiv on Friday as the country marked the National Flag Day. The ceremony was held on the eve of Ukraine's Independence Day. Ahead of the Ukrainian Independence Day, US President Joe Biden greeted President Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday and announced a new military aid package for the war-torn country. In a call with Zelensky, Biden reaffirmed Washington's unwavering support for Ukraine. The $125 million aid package includes air defense missiles, counter-drone equipment, anti-armor missiles and ammunition. Washington has provided Ukraine with more than $50 billion worth of military aid since the outbreak of its conflict with Russia in 2022. The United States unveiled sweeping new sanctions against nearly 400 individuals and companies linked to the Russia-Ukraine conflict on Friday. This move has intensified pressure on Moscow as the conflict drags into its third year. The sanctions announced by US Treasury, State and Commerce Departments target key Russian defense firms and entities in third countries like China. The measures also restrict US-made exports to Russia and Belarus, aiming to disrupt Moscow's military supply chains. Secretary of State Antony Blinken emphasized that the sanctions aim to impose further costs on those supporting Russia's invasion just ahead of Ukrainian Independence Day. The European Union's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, says that any reduction of military aid to Ukraine by Germany would be bad news. The German government announced cuts to aid earlier this year after months of squabbling amongst the coalition partners. DD India's Giles Gibson has more from Brussels.
Josep Borrell weighed in on Germany's future support to Ukraine during a conference in northern Spain. As well as commenting that plans to reduce aid are, quote, worrisome, he said that until now, without making a lot of noise, the strongest support for Ukraine has been Germany. Now, Borrell is due to step down as the EU's top diplomat later this year, with former Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas in the process of being confirmed as his successor. However, even though he's in his final weeks in the job, his words do still carry some weight. In its draft budget released in July, the German government said that it will slash aid to Ukraine from about $8.5 billion this year to $4.5 billion next year. It's argued that that difference will be made up by a plan that was announced at the G7 summit earlier this year, essentially using frozen Russian assets in the West to fund Ukraine's war effort. Under that plan, Kyiv will receive a loan of $50 billion, which will be backed up by Russia's seized assets. However, at this stage, it's still unclear when that money will actually reach Kyiv. In the final statement at the end of the G7 summit in Italy, leaders pledged to issue that loan, quotes, by the end of the year. Earlier this week, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz insisted that his country, quotes, will continue to support Ukraine for as long as necessary. And while Germany has been the largest contributor of aid to Ukraine within the EU, members of the coalition have been pushing for fiscal consolidation in 2025. Giles Gibson in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
In the United States, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. abandoned his campaign on Friday and endorsed Republican candidate Donald Trump. He ended a presidential bid that he began as a Democrat, trading on one of the most famous names in American politics. It was unclear whether Kennedy's endorsement would help Trump in the upcoming November 5th election. Kennedy said he would remove his name from the ballot in 10 battleground states likely to determine the outcome of the election and remain as a candidate in other states. Kennedy said he met with Trump and his aides several times and learned they agreed on issues like border security, free speech, and ending wars.
Hard. I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless, systematic censorship and media control. Oh, I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me.
Meanwhile, former U.S. President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump thanked Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for his endorsement, calling him a great guy.
We just had a very nice endorsement from RFK Jr., Bobby. I just want to thank everybody, and I want to thank Bobby. That was very nice. That was really very nice. That's big. He's a great guy, respected by everybody.
In the latest updates from Venezuela, the United States, along with countries in Europe and Latin America, have rejected the certification by Venezuela's Supreme Court of Nicolas Maduro's presidential re-election on Friday. The deputy spokesperson at the State Department, Vedant Patel, said that the court ruling lacks all credibility and discussions should be held on a respectful and peaceful transition. He also warned that continued attempts to fraudulently claim victory for Maduro will only exacerbate with the ongoing crisis, while Spain and Mexico continue to insist on a detailed breakdown of voting results. Venezuela's top court certified Maduro's disputed re-election to a third 6-year term, which he welcomed as historic. Also, Maduro has called for the arrest of former Venezuelan president candidate Edmundo Gonzalez. Meanwhile, Venezuelan Attorney General Tariq Saab said that Edmundo Gonzalez will be asked to testify about an opposition website where voting data is posted.
En las próximas horas. In the coming hours, the citizen Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia will be cited by this public ministry on the basis of the ongoing investigation, so he can give testimony about his responsibility, where he declares himself responsible for the web page which is usurping the virtue and the jurisdiction that only corresponds to the electoral authorities. He will have to answer. He will have to come. The public prosecutor's office has the competence to summon the accused in an ongoing investigation to advance in the investigations.
The UN spokesperson, Stefan Dujarric, said that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres continues to call for complete transparency and respect for human rights.
Secretary General takes note of the decision taken by the Supreme Court. We understand that the National Electoral Council has still not released the election results by polling stations. The Secretary General continues to call for complete transparency in that regard, and he reiterates his call for the full protection and respect of human rights and continues to urge all parties to resolve any electoral disputes through peaceful means.
You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, aiming to garner multi-party agreement on a new government, French President Emmanuel Macron to hold second day of discussions with party leaders. Democratic Republic of Congo grapples with the highest number of Mpox cases, even as more than 1,000 new cases were reported in the past week. 2 puma cubs found by locals in Apurimac recovered by Peru's National Forestry and Wildlife Service.
On the Voice of Global South this week, the Philippines stand up to China's bullying. An old, rusty warship of World War II vintage exposes chinks in the Chinese armor. From troubled past to promising future, a look at Timor-Leste's journey over the last 2 decades. And will there be a change of approach on climate change at COP29? Tune in at 7 p.m. IST and 13:30 hours GMT on Saturday, August 24, only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. A quick relook at the top stories now. US President Joe Biden had a telephonic conversation. We'll get to the headlines in a while from now. Meanwhile, let's turn focus to the telephonic conversation Biden had with leaders of Qatar and Egypt on Friday, pushing for an elusive Gaza ceasefire for hostages deal. A White House description of the call said Biden spoke to Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and separately with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to discuss diplomatic efforts to bring the ceasefire and hostage release deal to a conclusion. Biden's conversations came after the White House described talks in Cairo aimed at reaching a ceasefire as constructive and urged all sides to come together to work towards implementation of a proposed agreement. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the U.S. is seriously monitoring the ongoing threat from Iran to Israel and the exchange of fire along the Israel-Lebanon border. He spoke on Thursday with Israel's Minister of Defense, Yoav Gallant, and reiterated the importance of a ceasefire deal and the release of hostages from Hamas. Caroline Malone gets us more from Washington.
It's been 10 months since an attack by Hamas on Israel and a month since Israel purportedly killed a Hamas leader in Tehran. Iran has threatened to retaliate for that killing in its capital, but as yet no action has been publicly taken. The US has moved its military into position to help Israel with any possible defense, as it did in April when Tehran sent slow-moving drones and faster missiles towards Israel and was supported by the UK, France and other regional countries. Well, a peace deal between Hamas and Israel would help, but as yet nothing has been agreed. The US Middle East envoy Brett McGurk and CIA Director Bill Burns are in Cairo, meeting Israeli security chiefs and Egyptian mediators. But there are sticking points, including that Hamas and Egypt don't want Israeli troops remaining in the area on the land near the Gaza-Egypt border, near the Rafah crossing. Israel has said they want to keep troops there to make sure Hamas doesn't regroup or re-weaponize. But issues also remain over conditions to release Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the hostages. Well, in the meantime, the US is on alert for any possible moves from Iran, and hopes are fading of a deal. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
The Democratic National Convention has wrapped up in the U.S. city of Chicago, with Vice President Kamala Harris formally accepting the party's nomination for this year's election, becoming the first woman of color ever to top the ticket. Harris, who is of Indian descent, only launched her campaign weeks ago after President Joe Biden dropped out of the race, but she has already leaped in the polls with 73 days until Americans take to the ballot box. Benji Hire gets us more.
Harris struck a measured tone on Thursday night, touching upon her ideas for the economy, immigration, abortion and foreign policy. But she did so in very broad strokes. Ultimately, this was more about presenting herself to the nation, her upbringing, her character. Despite her serving as vice president for almost 4 years, millions of voters here went into the convention unfamiliar with details of her background or what she'll offer in office. To win them over, she focused on the language of unity over division, saying she'd be a president for all Americans, putting country above party. As a former prosecutor, she drew a contrast with Trump, a convicted felon. She laid into what she says was the chaos and calamity of his first term, his efforts to subvert democracy, inspiring the crowd to chant, "We are not going back." That swell of support, that momentum, has carried her to a place few expected just weeks ago. But now comes the hard part. She'll have to answer very direct questions about policy positions come the first debate next month with Donald Trump, where she'll come up against a man notorious for evading, for disrupting, for insulting, and of course for exposing Joe Biden on such a scale on stage that he ultimately withdrew his candidacy. Benji Hire in Washington, reporting for DD India.
The French president will hold a second day of discussions with party leaders on Monday as Emmanuel Macron tries to see if there could be multi-party agreement on a new government after inconclusive election results last month. Emmanuel Macron will, in fact, met left-wing and centrist politicians on Friday, including Llyod. She is the leading left-wing candidate to be France's new prime minister. DD India's correspondent Ross Cullen gets us more.
Well, Friday marked the first of 2 days of negotiations at the Élysée Palace between Emmanuel Macron and the different party leaders. On Friday morning, local time, we did see the left-wing New Popular Front. Now, they are the alliance that won the election in terms of the greatest number of seats, although they fell well short of a majority. We saw them in attendance at the Élysée Palace. They were led by Lucie Castet. Now, she is the 37-year-old civil servant who headed up that delegation, and she is the name that has been put forward by the left wing to be the new French Prime Minister, and Emmanuel Macron has, for now, ruled out appointing her to that role. The current incumbent is Gabriel Attal. Now, the previous administration is remaining in place for now as a caretaker government. Emmanuel Macron saying he didn't want domestic political disruption when the eyes of the world were turned to Paris for the 2024 Olympics. But now that we have this gap in between the two games, he has gone for it and said it is time to act, although the left wing have said that Emmanuel Macron has been procrastinating. Now, what is going to happen on Monday is that the National Rally will be the next major party to attend these talks. The far right were projected to win the election on July the 7th, the second round of the election, but in fact they finished third, although they do have the greatest number of MPs in terms of single party in the parliament. Jordan Bardella, the party leader, Marine Le Pen, the party figurehead, will be there with Emmanuel Macron on Monday, but it does seem to be difficult to envisage how the left-wing alliance that won the election or Emmanuel Macron's centrists who came second could agree to work alongside the Nationalist Populist Party in a future coalition government. Ross Cullen in Paris reporting for DD India.
The Philippines urged Beijing to heed calls to de-escalate tensions in the South China Sea after what it described as very dangerous actions by its Air Force, which came after the two nations have agreed to better manage maritime disputes. The Philippines called on Beijing on Saturday to immediately cease all provocative and dangerous actions after accusing it of unjustifiably deploying flares from China-occupied Subi Reef on August 22nd while a Manila aircraft was conducting patrols. That same aircraft also faced harassment from a Chinese jet fighter while it was conducting a surveillance flight near Scarborough Shoal on August 19th. A manhunt is underway after an attacker armed with a knife killed 3 people and seriously wounded several others at a festival on Friday in the western German city of Solingen. German media have reported an unidentified man knifed passers-by at random. The attack occurred at a festival to honor the town's 650th anniversary. The lone suspect is on the run and special police forces have been deployed to the active manhunt. The motive for the attack remains unclear. Africa manufactures only 3% of the global supply of medical drugs, and so 95% of its medicine supplies are imported. This imbalance has led to the proliferation of fake medicines into the continent, causing a major health crisis. In Uganda, efforts are underway to address the problem, as DD India's Llyod reports.
The illicit trade in fake medications is a major global issue, but it's particularly felt in Uganda. The country's rural areas are the most vulnerable because of the disease burden there, especially malaria.
But if you look at the health center now today, and you went to a health facility, 4 out of 10 of the patients at that facility, on average in Uganda, any day, 4 out of 10 are there because of a malaria visit. And in some districts, it's worse.
In Uganda, researchers found that 19% of 74 sampled batches of malaria treatment in rural areas were of substandard quality.
This will be about 74 million, over 70 million tablets that we picked. And if an adult takes about 24 tablets for each malaria case, then you see how many people would have been exposed to these medications.
According to the UN World Health Organization, WHO, antibiotics and anti-malaria products are the most commonly counterfeited medicines on the continent. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime estimates that each year, counterfeit pharmaceuticals kill up to 500,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa, a crisis that has developed into a public health catastrophe. Uganda hopes to reverse this.
We regulate medicine before it gets into the country, along so many other steps we undertake, like visiting the factory that is manufacturing those products, whether in Uganda, Africa, Europe, wherever it is. We send our experts to do what we call good manufacturing practices.
Since the signing of the Lome Initiative in 2020 by 6 African states, including Uganda, there has been progress in enacting and strengthening national laws to criminalize the importation, manufacture, distribution, and sale of fake medicines. A commitment that could guarantee access to appropriate medicines, saving many lives. Leon Senyange in Kampala, Uganda, reporting for DD India.
More than 1,000 new cases of Mpox have been reported in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the past week, raising the total number of infections to over 17,000 since the start of the year. The Central African nation has the highest number of the infectious disease that has now spread to several countries in Africa and a few others in Europe and Asia. DD India correspondent Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has continued recording an increase in Mpox cases across the country. Health officials say more than 600 people have died of the viral disease since January this year. The government has announced the release of $10 million as emergency funds. The money is meant for deploying health workers to treat patients and carry out surveillance around the country. Cases of Mpox have been recorded in all 26 provinces of the DRC. Some of the provinces are experiencing an armed conflict, which has made it difficult for health workers to access patients. A new, more infectious strain of Mpox that was discovered in eastern DRC earlier this year has spread to neighboring countries like Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. The disease has also been recorded in Sweden, Thailand, Philippines, and Pakistan. Last week, the World Health Organization declared the Mpox outbreak a public health emergency of international concern in order to mobilize resources and prevent it from spreading further. Chris Ochamringa in Kinshasa, reporting for DD India.
The U.S. Southern Command, the Department of Defense's Joint Military Command, to deliver 24 more armored vehicles to Kenyan personnel deployed in Haiti who are heading a long-delayed security operation in the conflict-ravaged Caribbean nation. Some 400 Kenyan police leading a UN-ratified security mission mandated to fight heavily armed gangs that have taken over most of the capital recently deployed to Haiti. The mission was first requested by Haiti's previous government in 2022. And of the handful of countries that have together pledged over 2,500 troops, the Kenyan contingent remains the only group to have arrived. The U.S. Southern Command, the Department of Defense's Joint Military Command covering Latin America and the Caribbean, said that it would deliver the mine-resistant, ambush-protected MAX Pros to the capital's main airport via U.S. Air Force C-17 cargo aircraft. America's space agency NASA will announce their final decision on Saturday as to whether two astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams, will return to Earth on Boeing's Starliner spacecraft or hitch a ride home with SpaceX instead. This decision could have a huge impact across the rapidly evolving space industry. Starliner launched its first two astronauts into space in June as a crucial test before it can receive NASA approval for routine flights. But what was supposed to be an 8-day mission docked to the ISS has been drawn out by months after the capsule sprang leaks and some of its thrusters failed. If NASA exercises the SpaceX backup plan, Wilmore and Williams could not come home until the mission's conclusion in February 2025, and Starliner would attempt to return to Earth empty. A quick look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. Peru's National Forestry and Wildlife Service recovered 2 puma cubs found by a farming community in southern central city of Apurimac. The pumas were found in a deteriorating health condition and were taken to the veterinary faculty of the local university. Giant panda Meng Meng at Berlin Zoo has given birth to twins at the Panda Garden in the German capital for the second time. The birth of every single cub is an important contribution to the conservation of this endangered species. Anime NYC, a 3-day Japanese animation and culture convention, kicked off at the Javits Center in New York City on Friday. The event is expected to attract the largest crowd. More than 100,000 tickets have been sold for this year's event. A quick break ahead, but still to come on DD India News Hour. US Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell acknowledges that US inflation has cooled enough to begin the rate cut. Indian women dominate at Under-17 World Wrestling Championships to win the first ever team title. Indian cricketer Shikhar Dhawan announces retirement from domestic and international cricket, bringing curtains down to a 13-year-long illustrious career. Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. The US Federal Reserve Chairman has indicated that interest rate cuts are on the horizon. In a speech at Jackson Hole Economic Symposium, Jerome Powell acknowledged that US inflation has cooled enough to begin the rate cut. However, there are still fears that a recession could be triggered as employment rises. Nick Harper gets us more from Washington.
Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, has made his most definitive remarks to date to indicate that interest rates are coming. It now very much seems to be a case of when rather than if. He gave no precise timing of when that rate cutting cycle would begin and no precise details of the size of the initial cut.
The time has come for policy to adjust. The direction of travel is clear, and the timing and pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. Overall, the economy continues to grow at a solid pace, but the inflation and labor market data show an evolving situation. The upside risks to inflation have diminished, and the downside risks to employment have increased. As we highlighted in our last FOMC statement, we are attentive to the risks to both sides of our dual mandate.
There was one small caveat as to the exact timing and pace of those cuts, saying that it would depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. However, global markets don't like to be surprised by interest rate rises or cuts, and this seems to be the Fed chair very much trying to lay the groundwork to signal that these cuts will be coming. Now remember, the Federal Reserve here in the US implemented a very aggressive rate hiking policy, 13 rate hikes between March 2022 and July 2023, all of it to try and get inflation under control after it hit a 40-year high, topping 7%. Now, interest rates were raised to 5.25 to 5.5%. They've been there for more than a year. That is a 23-year high for interest rates, something that has certainly had an impact on the US economy. Part of that has been, of course, the calming of inflation. That has cooled. It's now down to about 2.5% from that above 7% high. But an unintended consequence is also that we've seen the labour market tighten as well. Increased interest rates mean that companies are often more reluctant to hire workers. So we have seen the unemployment rate rise, and that has risen concerns in recent weeks that the US could still be on course for a recession at some point in the next 12 months. The Fed Chair Jerome Powell thinks that is unlikely. He was indicating that he feels that the US is still on course for a soft landing as opposed to a hard landing and recession. All eyes will now be on the next Fed meeting, which takes place on the 17th and 18th of September, when we could finally see that long-awaited interest rate cut finally happening. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Time now for sports updates in DD India News Hour. Indian women wrestlers stamped their class on Friday as they won 5 gold medals at the Under-17 World Wrestling Championships 2024 in Jordan. Kajol became the 5th wrestler from the country to bag the title with a commanding 9-2 win over Ukraine's Alexandra Rabik in the 69 kg weight category. India dominated women's wrestling to win its first ever team title with 185 points. Indian women signed off with 8 medals, including 5 golds, 1 silver and 3 bronze medals. However, India's men's freestyle wrestlers could not replicate the success of their women counterparts, as none of the 5 grapplers in action could make it to the semis. Indian cricketer Shikhar Dhawan announced his retirement from domestic and international cricket on Saturday, bringing an end to a 13-year-long illustrious career. Dhawan last played for India in the ODI series against Bangladesh in December 2022, before losing his place to Shubman Gill. The 38-year-old shared a long video message for his fans on his social media handles, thanking them for their love and support throughout his career. Dhawan scored 10,867 runs from 269 appearances, including 24 centuries, 55 50s, and remains one of the linchpins of Indian batting over the last decade. Double Olympic medalist Manu Bhaker speaks exclusively to DD India's Abhishek Mahajan. She talks about the disappointment of Tokyo to the joy of Paris and what these medals mean to her.
Congratulations from all of us.
Thank you.
You have achieved something which has never happened before. Tell us, how big are these medals for you?
Honestly, I think we always realize after the history has been made.
Yeah.
And the same was the thing for me also. Earlier, I was not aware of the facts and how many medals one person from India has won in previous games. I was not aware of it. And the value of the medal, I mean, coming from Tokyo, definitely it means a big deal for me because I was world number 2 during the times of Tokyo, and how the expectations were, I was not able to deliver it to that. But this time around, I mean, the planning was way better, and the training was way better, and I was prepared in a much better way this time.
The Olympic medalist also talked about the disappointment of Tokyo to the joy of Paris and what these medals mean to her. She also talked about how life has changed post the Paris glory.
Meeting politicians, felicitations happening. We have been meeting journalists, giving interviews almost every day. Tell us, how has life changed after Paris glory?
I think this life, honestly, if I would say, this life is way difficult than my shooting life.
Are you not enjoying it?
I mean, everything has its own importance, I understand that, and I do enjoy everything to a limit. But sometimes we do feel tired, although right now it's good. However it's going, and I'm happy like how people are showering me with so much of love and care and support.
All right, you can watch the entire interview with Manu Bhaker on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. IST. In cricket, Nicholas Pooran smashed an unbeaten 65 from 26 balls to ease West Indies to a 7-wicket T20 international win over South Africa in Trinidad. With this victory, West Indies took a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series, and after being sent into bat, South Africa posted 174 for 7 in their 20 overs. West Indies openers crashed the ball to all parts of the ground and reached their target with 13 balls to spare. The destructive Pooran launched 7 sixes to go with 2 fours as he finished off the innings in style. The opening platform of 84 runs was laid by Alec Athanase and Shai Hope before both were dismissed by South African seamer Othniel Batman. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the respective QR codes on your screens. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us at In Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.